All right, welcome back, everyone. So, we got a lot to uncover this week, especially from an economic and technical analysis standpoint, from everything from earnings breakdown from this past week till the Fed interest rate decision this week. So, let's go ahead and get into it. So, this past week we saw the core PCE numbers go ahead and continue to be as expected. So, we're still seeing that inflation trending down. Inflation is still in that rearview mirror. We're still worried about the recession, but actually the data that we're having is the economic numbers are coming in a lot stronger than expected, which I'll get into a little bit for what we expect from the rate decision. Now, from a recession perspective, the inflation is going down while the economic data is continually trying to come out and show some strength. So that is a good sign as far as a soft landing. So that's why you're really seeing this push in the market in general, along with this weekly breakout that you can see right here on SPY. So the main thing is we're going to continue to be very highly data driven going out, but we had this bullish cross right here in the weekly chart, and we're continuing to see now. What I would like to see is a push all the way to 410. If we continue to see a 410, I think we could see a little bit of resistance there from previous spots. If we push through there, I'd be watching around 420 to that 435 area. But looking at QQQ or the NASDAQ, we can see right here that we were on this weekly breakout as well. We broke out. Now, I'd like to see a little bit of a retest and then show some support and then continue to go. We continue to see this stock RSI on the weekly, where you can see it on SPY as well back here. We're seeing this continue push. Now, this week we'll continue to actually push us in the overbought area. So I think after this next week we could see a little bit more of a pullback. And I think we're going to continue to kind of run out a little bit of a strength before we have a little bit of a pullback in general, just before we can continue to run. But the fact that we're seeing this bullish push here is very good news. Now, the question is, can we continue to hold it? Of course, Apple, we had this daily breakout right here. And, I mean, if you look at this from a technical perspective, not even counting their earnings and everything that's coming out, if you just look at this as a technical perspective, the stock RSI is going to continue to rise. The MACD has so much room to push, and that daily breakout is super bullish. Now, I would like to see a push above 150. 150 is going to be a very high resistance, and I would like to see how it reacts around that range. But this weekly chart on Apple, just looking at a technical analysis perspective, is very, very bullish. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Tesla because, Tesla, it's basically a meme stock at this point, okay? So, we ran all the way up highs, and we had that 3-to-1 stock split. Now we're seeing that Elon Musk is in it's constantly in the news, but whether it's Twitter or it's this lawsuit that's going on right now about the buyout or taking Tesla private. But the thing is I'm watching is, if you look right here, we're still in this weekly bearish area, this bearish cloud. Now, if you look at this from a technical analysis perspective, you can see this MACD and the stock RSI is very bullish. It still has a lot of room to run. If we look at this from a daily perspective, we can easily see that the stock RSI is overbought, but the MACD still has a little bit of room, and it's actually starting to try to cross through into this bullish territory. So what I would be watching is, I'd be watching this around I'd be mainly watching this 200 level. Depending on how we react to that 200 level, because I really think that's going to be a very high resistance area where we could possibly continue to see some pullback before we continue to push a little bit farther. Now, Meta, or what previously Facebook, it's just been on a tear. Now, you can see on this weekly cloud, we had this bullish crossover, continue to push higher. We have this really big gap fill all the way back down to 139, 140 range. I would like to see that pull back and actually fill that gap and then bounce again you can see that actual strong push. this consolidation area that it was in previously could be a little bit more of a demand zone where you could see a little bit of selling pushing down. This stock RSI is very overbought. MACD still has a little bit of room. It can continue to push. But I do think that Meta has a little bit of room to push, but I think that we could see a little bit more of a pullback in general before we continue pushing. But from a long-term perspective, this is very bullish. Now, looking at Carvana, I'm watching around this $8, 8 to 8.11 range. On the daily, this is the daily chart right here. With the stock RSI is not overbought, not oversold. It has a lot. It can completely go back up if it wanted. MACD still has it continue to feel that crossover. I'm actually very bullish on this. We're continue holding this this bullish cloud as we had this little bit of a pullback. More than likely just to kind of cool off some of this, probably the RSI, and then we had this bullish push. We broke out of this bull flag. Now, I'd like to see it break out of this high resistance around 8 to 8.11. If we can break through this, I really think this could absolutely shoot up to this gap fill all the way up to around 9 to 10 range. If we do gap fill, I'd like to see how it reacts to that, because we could push all the way up to this demand zone around 14 to 15, depending on how strong of a push we have. And then lastly, looking at Pax Medica, from a technical perspective, I'm bearish on, just because we're about to break through this bullish cloud and go see this real bullish bearish push. Of course, we have that support around 1.3. We couldn't break out of this 3.5. You can see that we had hard resistance 1, 2, and 3 times and just couldn't break through. Had a hard rejection right here, and along with that daily MACD and stock RSIs has a lot more room to go down. So I'm actually bearish on Pax Medica. Carvana, I am bullish. If we can get above this range of 8 to 8.1. Meta, I'd like to see a little bit more of a pullback in short term to kind of fill that gap and then continue to show some bullish strength, but I'm long-term bullish on Meta. Tesla, meme stock, you never know what's really going to happen, but in general, I mean, weekly perspective, long-term, this has a lot of room to run, along with Apple as well. I mean, I'm very high on Apple depending on what their earnings is, but remember, Apple doesn't give their forecast on what they expect, guidance, so that could be a little bit more in their favor in general. But what we expect from this week's rate hike, so we continue to see the economic data come out a lot better than expected. We see this inflation data continue to go down. So the main question is, what do we expect for the rate decision in general? Well, I expect us to continue to see that, go ahead and get that quarter of a rate hike just because of inflation going down, but that does not mean that we will stop right there. So we've seen the Fed futures are expecting a quarter of a rate hike this month, quarter of a rate hike at the next interest rate hike, and then they're going to expecting to stop. Now, I expect us to get to that 5% mark, and we're not there yet. So we could continue to see some more rate hikes until we get to that 5% interest rate hike, and then depending on what we have inflation data-wise coming out at that point, I think that's where we kind of really need to decide. They're going to decide long-term where we really are at that point. So, but soft landing, everyone, is looking a lot more plausible in general, just because we are seeing a lot more stronger economic data along with that inflation going down. If we see inflation coming back with a vengeance, and I will say, inflation battle is not done whatsoever, but if we do see if it come back with a little bit of a vengeance, because we're not seeing it go down as fast as we were, and if you know anything about inflation, it has spikes. It goes down fast. It can come back a little bit before it goes down, just like a stock market. So the battle is not done with inflation, but it is looking a lot better. So that is, I expect this week. I think we see another possible week of a breakout. If we, on this weekly breakout on SPY, we completely broke out of this weekly bull flag. This is super bullish. I would like to see how we react around 410 this week if we can get there. And depending on how we react to that, I want to see follow through this week on this breakout, and if we could really get a push, that is super bullish, especially going into long term. So I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, just please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you to everybody that's following, and just everybody continue to have a great week, and God bless.